Broadcasting from the great city of Houston, Texas, it's the Jay Williams Podcast. I'm your host with the most, Jay Williams.
What up, Northside? It's your boy, and yes, I'm back at it again. Welcome to the Jay Williams Podcast. I'm your host with the most, Jay Williams. Here's where the underdog has a voice. I understand it's been nearly 2 weeks since we last talked. Happy Black History Month. I got a couple of interesting emails, one in particular from a gentleman named Dan Reynolds out of Mobile, Alabama, in which I describe as AKA Trump Country. Dan writes, "Hello, Jay. I occasionally enjoy listening to your podcast. However, I take great offense with you describing our 45th president, Donald J. Trump, as a loudmouth racist. Jay, what's the basis of your argument, or are you just repeating the talking points of the liberal media? Please explain, Jay. Yours truly, Dan Reynolds of Mobile, Alabama, in which I describe as AKA Trump Country." What up, Dan? I tell you what, we've been doing this for a long time. And I got to say that I'm really going to enjoy this one, Dan. I'm really going to enjoy it. I can't lie to you, Dan. So without further delay, let's bring the noise.
Donald Trump has been obsessed with race the entire time he has been a public figure. He has had a history of making racial comments as a New York real estate developer in the 1970s and the 1980s. Most recently, his political rise was built on a lie that the first African American president was born king. He then launched his political campaign with a speech describing Mexicans as rapists. Let's go get him, Jay.
And that we shall. And that we shall. Now, listen, then, I thought the best way to prove my point that Donald J. Trump, as you describe him, is a loudmouth, insensitive racist by using his statements and his tweets he made in the last 45 to 30 years. So let's dive right into it. Donald Trump's real estate company tried to avoid renting apartments to African Americans in the 1970s and gave special treatments to whites, according to the federal government. Now, this was something that came out in the Republican primary as well as the general election when he ran against Hillary Clinton, but it failed to gain traction in the Republican primary. Like the craziest things that this guy would say and the things that was revealed from his past that came out was totally ignored. And this guy just ran through the Republican primary as a redneck, like a redneck trucker. No point intended, Dan. No point intended. I just thought I would throw that out there at you, Dan. Let's move right along. Donald Trump treated black employees at his casinos differently from whites, according to multiple sources. A former hotel executive said Donald Trump criticized a black accountant. "A black guy counting my money. I hate it. I think this guy is lazy. And it's probably not his fault because laziness is a trait in blacks." So, I mean, Dan, we weren't lazy when we was picking that cotton for your asses. We weren't lazy when we was nursing your badass kids. Okay, let's move right on. Well, no, not personalizing this at all. At least I'm not trying to anyway. All right. In 1989, Trump took out an ad in a New York newspaper urging the death penalty for 5 black and Latino teenagers accused of raping a white woman in Central Park. He argued they were guilty as late as October 2016, more than 10 years after the DNA evidence cleared them. Now, listen, DNA don't lie. You know, DNA has cleared and freed several people from death row, black, white, Latino, whoever. So, however, Donald Trump refused to admit that these brothers were innocent. as late as 2016, he still held on to that racist sentiment that these guys were guilty because what? They were black and Latino. And as I go on and prove my point here, Dan, you see a history and a pattern of this guy continue to denigrate and disrespect people of color. In 1989, on NBC, Donald Trump said, "I think sometimes a black guy thinks that he don't have an advantage," or something like that. I said on several occasions, even about myself, if I was starting off today, I would love to be a well-educated black because I really believe they have all the advantages. Okay, well, two things. One thing that we're establishing so far, that he's a loudmouth, insistent racist, but he also want to be black. Hey, in his own words, in 1989, he said it on NBC. He's obsessed with dark-skinned immigrants. He began his 2016 presidential campaign with a speech describing Mexican immigrants as criminals and rapists. Oh boy, I tell you, Donald. He uses the gang MS-13 to describe all immigrants as contributors to the growth of MS-13. He suggested that Obama protection of the dreamers, otherwise law-abiding immigrants who were brought to the United States illegally as children, contributing to the spread of the MS-13 gangs. All right, let's move right along. In December 2015, Donald Trump called for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States, including refusing to readmit Muslim American citizens who were out the country at that time. You know that guy that always say, I work with those Muslims. They're kind of strange guys. Or that one that said, I got black friends. I can't be racist. I got colored friends. Off the point here, I had a customer complaint on my staff, last week. And it was an African-American lady. She was a fair-skinned African-American sister with freckles. And she said, one of my staff said, a colored with freckles, you very seldom see that. And she was offended. And this would probably have been a discrimination complaint. However, the person that made this statement was African-American herself. She's an older sister, so she was from an era when, black folks were described as colored. So, it wasn't, I couldn't really say it was, she was being racist. She was just understanding you got to understand the era where she come from. And, we talked and I'll let her know that, you can build a good rapport with your customers. However, sometimes, some words are offensive, no matter if they're coming from me as a black man and I'm talking to a African-American who I don't know. It might be offensive. So we got to be careful of that. So I know I'm getting off point. I just thought I should bring that up because it was so funny during the time. So let's move right along, right along, Dan. I don't want you to think I forgot about you, Dan, out there. I know you're listening. Trump said a federal judge hearing a case about the Trump University was biased because he was of Mexican descent. Now, y'all remember this. This came out in the campaign that Trump was having some issues and going to court, being sued by the federal government because of this phony Trump University issue that he had. And he said he would never, ever, ever settle. He would fight this to the end. And you notice once he was elected president, he went on settled out of court by with a undisclosed amount. So that tells you that, man, this guy is a con artist. And I said it from the beginning that Donald Trump did the biggest con ever in America. He's like that guy that go through, when you watch those old Western movies, you got that guy that go from town to town selling that snake oil that would cure everything. That's what Donald Trump did. He did the biggest con ever done to this country. And this guy is definitely bringing down the respect that we have for the highest office of the land. And that's my opinion. So, Dan, yes, I'm proving my point that this guy is a loudmouth and sensitive racist. Now let's move right along. In June of 2017, Trump said 15,000 recent immigrants from Haiti and all had AIDS. And over 40,000 Nigerians, once they see United States, wouldn't go back to their huts in Africa. Let me tell you how uninformed and how ignorant this guy is. He has no clue that most of the Nigerians that come to the United States are more educated than the Americans. Out of all the immigrants that enter this country, the Nigerians are more educated than the majority of them. But this guy is so in a damn bubble and box that he don't read that he wouldn't know that. You understand that? I bet you didn't know that, Dan. At the White House on January the 11th, which was a couple weeks ago, Trump called for less immigrants from Haiti and Africa and more from Norway. Now, I tell you what, the person that was sitting next to Donald Trump when he said that shit should have just slapped the hell out of him. I mean, slapped him so hard he'd think his breakfast again. Can I get toast with them bacons? I mean, someone should have slapped the hell out of him for that ignorant statement right there. I know, you probably would have went to jail and your Secret Service probably would have threw you, you probably would have got handled, but it was worth it. It would have been worth it. Donald Trump described Obama as unqualified, lazy, and un-American. Now, here's a guy, Barack Obama, who was not only the first African-American president, but was the first African American president of the Harvard Law Review. But Donald Trump described him as unqualified, lazy, and un-American. What we're also going to establish here as well, that not only is Donald Trump is a loudmouth, insensitive racist, we already established that he wants to be black. We're also going to establish here in a minute that Donald Trump is obsessed with Barack Obama. In a tweet, he tweeted August the 6th, 2012, extremely credible source called my office and told me that Barack Obama's birth certificate is a fraud. Once again, here's a guy that rose to fame in the Republican Party by repeating the lie that the first African-American president wasn't born in the United States. He was born in Kenya. He spent years suggesting that the nation's first black president was not born in the United States, was born in Kenya. A lie that Donald Trump continues to acknowledge as such. Now, I admit, in the general election with Hillary Clinton, he came out on a press conference and he said, I'm going to put this to rest. Yes, Barack Obama was born here. Well, according to the Washington Post, he now continued to recite this and with certain aides, around certain aides, that he still believed Barack Obama was born in Kenya. Trump called Obama, who's, once again, editor-in-chief of the Harvard Law Review, a terrible student. Once again, you don't become the president and editor-in-chief of the Harvard Law Review if you were a terrible student, Mr. 45th President. Trump tweeted December the 16th, 2014, Obama has admitted he spends his morning watching ESPN, then he golfs, fundraising